Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, hey, folks, welcome to the Chasing Giants podcast. Got Don Higgins on. We're brought to you by Osseo Gear. We got a really good show for you this week, and sounds like Don's got a little bit of coughing fits going on, but we'll edit that out. But, Don, we've kind of nestled back in a normal schedule a little bit after these crazy couple weeks of trade shows, dealer events. You're finishing up some consulting, but I know I absolutely crashed this last weekend. The last podcast came out, got some rest, and man, I feel almost rejuvenated a little bit after running and gunning for so long.
Yeah, I picked up some kind of a virus somewhere that I know where I got it. I got it from my wife. She had it, and there's probably going to be multiple coughing fits on this podcast. And I got a glass of water right here beside me, but I apologize in advance. I know I'm going to be coughing. I'll try to hold my hand over the mic when I do. But yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm getting ready to hit the road for Ohio. By the time this airs on Sunday, I will be back home. But I'll tell you what, I'm beat. I was just telling Robin today that I'm ready for spring because I still got a trip to Iowa and Missouri, and then I've got a big one to Wisconsin. I'm probably going to be in Wisconsin about 10 days with all the visits I got up there. But I just, every year I think that I'm going to slow down, and every year the phone rings or the emails come in, and I can't tell people no, but I love what I do, but it's hard on us. I'm telling you, by the time spring rolls around, we are beat.
Yeah, the other thing is you're feeling better, so you're able to do more. I know last year your health was not to where you could travel, so I think you're able to do a little bit more this year. But yeah, there's a couple key things I want to do in this episode specifically. One of those is talk a little bit about permission properties. I think it's a great discussion, and we can even continue it next week if there's some other questions that you guys who are loyal listeners, listen every week, you want extra questions answered specific to permission properties, we can continue it next week. But I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk a little bit about scrape magnet. And even though we introduced it in a soft launch at Shipshewana, I wanted to wait and not talk about it too much until we talk to our dealers. But I want our listeners to know kind of what the deal is with this product, why we're doing it, why it's Chasing Giants branding on it. So I want to talk through that. But most importantly, we're going to try to get through at least 6 or 7 questions in that segment sponsored by Midwest Land Group at the end, because since we've been in front of live audiences or we answered dealer questions last week, those things are stacking up to us. And we got some good questions that I think we want to tackle and try to get done on this episode. But before we do that, what is Habitat Projects? Have you been able to do anything? Control burns, frost seeding, anything like that? I got my frost seeding done of my clover orchards on Sunday afternoon after church in front of cold temperatures and rain and sleet and snow. So what's the status of your habitat? Have you been able to do anything?
Oh, we had one controlled burn that got out of control. We had a wind shift, and we was just about done with burning this field, and the wind shifted and jumped a fire break and burned up a couple trees. I think it's only.
Was this on your place?
Yeah, this last weekend I had Corey and Andrea here helping, and Andrea had this one of those backpack leaf blowers, one of them really powerful ones, and she was keeping the fire under control, doing a great job. But then all of a sudden the wind shifted, and she was sitting there trying to compete with the wind, and there's no competing with Mother Nature, and burned up a couple trees. But it could have been worse.
Which switch scratch patch was it?
Well, it's the one behind my house, but we only burned half of it because the half that sits against the wooded sanctuary, I'm going to plant trees in that this year. So I burned it off. Then I'm going to come in this spring when it greens up, and I'm going to spray strips, and then I'm going to plant trees with my tree seedling planter. in those strips, and then I'm just going to walk away and let it grow up. And it's going to, if you don't burn those native grasses over time, they'll just brush and briars and saplings will just take over. And that's what I want to happen, but I want to kind of determine some of the better trees in the mix too. So I'm going to plant a bunch of oaks and spruce and then some shrubs in there as well. But spray those strips to kill that switchgrass where those are going to be. And then I'm using I used to have the food plot right up against the sanctuary, the wooded sanctuary, where I'm shifting it over to the middle of that switchgrass field. And so it's going to cut it in half and it's going to serve as a fire break so that these trees I'm planting don't get burned. I'm going to have 60 foot, which is double my sprayer. I got a 30-foot sprayer, a 60-foot wide food plot that cuts that in half. And it's probably going to make another stand location or blind location too when I do that. But that's been about the only thing I've done so far. I do need to seed some clover, but I'll tell you, the pH drill works so well for that I don't even want to frost seed anymore, although it's a great way to do it. When I use that drill, I mean, you can look right down the rows and just see that little clover come up or whatever it is you're planting. And I've already got, where I'm doing it, I've already got established clover. It's just that I'm going to, put in a few more pounds with the pH drill on my fire breaks and fruit orchards and other places where that clover's growing.
Yep. So, I mean, it's definitely an awesome tool. But got mine done. I did get all of my trail cameras pulled. I pulled everything from Illinois and all my stands coming back from the dealer event. And I'm slowly going through the cards and pulling batteries. I have a 5-gallon bucket of AA batteries that I need to get rid of. I need to research and find out where to recycle those things at. But I have a full 5-gallon bucket that needs to go.
Yeah, I gathered all my trail cameras in the last few days as well, except for I got a few on my place. Some of those I leave out year round, more for trespassers and dogs than anything. But the good thing about it is I found a buck that I didn't really know about on a permission piece. I hadn't been to that camera since, I don't know, I think it was about the 1st of November. And there really hadn't been much on that property for quite a while. I mean, for years, really, since I've had permission. And I went and checked that camera, and boy, there's a nice 6x6 buck, mature, really heavy bases, really good brow tines. The rest of his tines are not super long. They're about average. But, I mean, he's definitely a mature buck. And I'm going to see what I can do next summer as far as tracking him down. And who knows, may get a shot at him on that permission piece next year.
That sounds great. Well, let's talk a little bit about, go ahead and talk about scrape magnet, and then we can talk about permission properties after the Osseo break. And one of the projects that I got to tackle this week, as it's raining outside every day, is making up some new ropes. And I got a 100-foot roll of hemp rope sitting here on my floor right beside my desk that I'll be cutting up and prepping. We're going to do some videos on that for Chasing Giants TV, but I want to explain a little bit about the scrape magnet product that we did a soft launch for in Shipshewana. And I'll just let you kind of talk first, and then we'll kind of go into the how, the why, and what the whole game plan is behind this thing. But I think it's much more strategic than people just think of us doing a money grab. So yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for us to talk about it just for a minute.
Yeah, one of the big advantages is that we're selling this in gallon jugs as well as 16-ounce bottles, the smaller bottles, basically to give folks a chance to try it without having to buy a full gallon. But I think one of the biggest things about those rope scrapes is getting the deer to start using them, because once they start using it, it's really not all that critical that you keep going in and putting scent on it. Now, I do think you need to scent it once or twice a year. But I want that rope soaked. And with a gallon jug, we're going to produce a video, but I've got a small bucket where I'll coil that rope up in the bottom of that bucket, and I'll put that whole gallon in there and let that rope just totally soak it up. And then just carry that little bucket to the woods and hang that rope. And that thing is literally drenched and saturated with that scent. And this scent, being synthetic, it's not water-based at all. It's more, it's kind of oily. So you could take a drop of that and put it on your kitchen counter or whatever, and a drop of water right next to it, you come back in a day or two and that water's evaporated, but that scent, that synthetic scent is still there. And so when it's impregnated in that rope, it's not going to really evaporate. If it does, I mean, it's going to be very, very slowly, and that scent is going to stay there for a long time. I mean, that's one of our biggest reasons for doing it and marketing in gallon jugs, just so there's enough of it out there on the rope and people aren't being stingy just putting a few drops on the rope. You want the deer to really be able to smell that for some time in the future. Yeah, a couple drops of a right scent will work, but how long does it last? And that's the big thing. And with a gallon jug, you basically just set that rope in the bucket and it soaks it up. The entire rope is just soaked full of it. And when you hang that rope, it's dripping on the ground too. That's the big advantage to this stuff. And the price, you know, if you figured a per ounce price, it's probably the cheapest scent out there.
Yeah. So I think that we could cure cancer and there would still be somebody out there that criticizes us. So we're not addressing that, but I think it's important for the people who do follow us and trust us to explain kind of what happened in the series of events that led us out to this. And it's been about a 2-year process that you and I have been working on with this. We were originally contacted as a sponsorship and a company wanted to work with us. And through that basically back and forth, we basically thought that the best path forward was to acquire the rights to it. We thought we could tweak it to make it a little bit better to suit, you know, kind of our philosophy, our methodology of using rope scrapes. So, but here's the thing that I don't think people appreciate. One of the biggest benefits to this is for our dealers. And I tried to explain this in our dealer meeting is that we want all these small businesses out there to thrive. I don't know who in their right mind would go on record to say they don't want small business to fail, right? It's everybody's, you know, got their shops, got their businesses. But the problem with selling real world seed is it's a seasonal business. So part of your and I's desire to bring this product out was to have something that our dealers could sell in the off season to help cash flow. And transparently, it's going to do the same thing for Real World and Green Prairie because we have a lot more employees than we used to have. The company's much bigger. So we looked at it as an investment to say, hey, here was somebody who approached us. The kicker is the company, you used their product almost 20 years ago and we're in their brochure. So it's something that you were familiar with, that you trusted, that we had a kind of an opportunity to make a business decision to bring it in, put our name on it. We tweaked the formula a little bit. We tested it for a full year. And, you know, if anybody doubts that the videos that we showed in the promo video are our farms, we can take them to the spots where those trail cameras were hanging. What really just started out as a potential sponsor for us turned into a business opportunity that we're really trying to use to be a blessing to our dealers, to give them products that they can sell when cash flow is a little bit tight. And if people want to criticize us for that motive, so be it. I'm okay with that.
Well, the haters aren't even worth talking about, but this stuff, I think the thing we really need to share is the fact that last fall we tested this in 9 states on 54 properties, and one of those was mine. Doubting Thomas, the buck that I shot last fall, a 203-inch buck, we got him on video hitting these rope scrapes that had scrape magnet on it. And the promo video that is going to be on the website, it's going to be also an instructional video how to use it, but it's going to include that clip of Doubting Thomas.
Yeah, several of them. So I want to address the kind of awkward thing that you and I had to talk about extensively, and that's our relationship with Smokey. And you even made a phone call out of courtesy to him to kind of let him know what we were thinking about doing very early in this process. But, you know, Smokey does a natural gland-based lure, and this product, because it being synthetic, isn't trying to work the same way as a lure. And I tried my best to explain this in the dealer conference, but that's not how synthetic product works. You know, lure is trying to imitate an animal. Synthetic is creating a what's the right word?
Stimuli or stimulus?
Yeah, and get a reaction from that stimulus. So in this case, scrape magnet works completely different. It doesn't smell like an animal. but more importantly, it's not going to rot. It's not organ tissue that's in a bottle that has to keep refrigerated. So that bucket that you're talking about, after you take that rope out, you can put another rope in it, or you can dump that into a squirt bottle or a dripper or anything else and not worry about it dissipating. But I really feel that as these states start really falling for the CWD disease, political disease that is, states are going to end up being like Canada and banning land-based lures. So we saw it as a business opportunity. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But a lot of that is for our dealers to be able to thrive and manage their cash flow. And we hope it's a blessing to them as well as our customers using a great product that's been proven that I've never personally used anything like it. So I'm excited about it and hope our listeners and fans are too.
Yeah, and talking about Smokey, Smokey is a fantastic person. His lures absolutely work. In fact, I've got a whole box full of his trapping scents. My grandson Walker is really interested in trapping, so we're going to run a trap line next fall. Should have done it this year, but they were finishing their new house and weren't living close until Christmas time. But I'm going to be using Smoky scents on the trap line. They still work for deer. No way in the world am I ever going to bash Smoky or his products. They're first class, but this scent will last it's unlimited. It'll be in that bottle 100 years from now. You could pour it out and go, and the deer are going to hit it being synthetic. So the fact that more and more states are outlawing, natural scents, it's just, it was a perfect opportunity for us to get into that market.
So we're just being honest with everybody, transparent. That's the reasons we came out with it. We're not going to say it's better or worse than Smokies or a natural gland-based. It's different, and it works completely different. So there's a lot of selling features or benefits, if you will, to using the synthetic that we think fits our methodology a whole lot better with the way we do things. So excited about that. It is live on the Real World website. There's dealers that are going to have their inventory at the Iowa Deer Classic, trade show in Kansas. I know the Wisconsin show's already over. So make sure you walk around and look for Real World dealers at those shows, because they already have inventory and it's on the Real World website. We got content coming out soon for it. So don't be scared to reach out and talk to one of your dealers and say you're interested in that. Let's take a quick break and talk about Osseo. I'm going to revisit our topic from last week with Joe Miles and Mission Whitetail with this new class they have from Bobby Worthington on woodsmanship. And I know you mentioned a little bit yesterday, Bobby being one of the most accomplished guys for, I think, any hunter that hunts public land. This would be the best investment they could ever make for hunting public land. And I know public land hunters aren't necessarily our largest demographic, but I think it would be a phenomenal resource for you guys to get to see Bobby's class online.
Yeah, Bobby's as good as they come. If you're in a big wood setting, mountainous setting, he is the man. There's a lot of guys killing big bucks in farm country, like where I hunt. But when it comes to the mountains and the big woods, Bobby's the guy. I would put his record up against anyone, even the Midwest hunters. Bobby's killed a wall full of bucks in East Tennessee, of all places, that would rival any wall in the Midwest. He's been doing it a long time, and there's a lot that any of us could learn from him.
Yep. All right, well, go check out Osseo Gear and also check out Mission Whitetail for more information on that. If you're a turkey hunter, make sure you get on the list for that turkey vest. I know our buddy Al Foster was all Johnny on the spot as soon as he walked into the Shipshewana show to go check out that turkey vest. So I do want to just mention another product for those watching on YouTube. We mentioned a couple weeks ago our new partnership with Hawk, and I'm not playing a Hawk commercial or anything. Our buddy Cameron, we've known him for years, and one of the things about Cameron is he's really big into the mobile hunting and saddle hunting. Good hunter. But one of the things when I was at Shipshewana he showed me is Hawk has this new 8x32 binoculars, and he loves them because of how small and compact they are. And I got to thinking, I was like, this is perfect for like you and I in the woods, because most of the time we're only looking within 100 yards anyway. But for those of you watching on YouTube, the size of these is just tiny to where they could fit in the top of that Osio backpack. So I looked through these the first time at Shipshewana show, and I was like, I got to get me a pair of these. You don't give up much at all for what you can see. Now, you and I still use a big pair, when we're glassing fields from the truck, or when you crawl up on your grain bin that gets criticized so much. But from a long ways away, we'll use like a 10 by 50 or something. But I'm telling you what, I'm out of anything that I've ordered from Hawk so far, I'm most excited about these binoculars. Head over to their website. You need to order your stuff because I know you only have a couple pieces. I think we need to pick out some new stuff for you too. So check those out, Hawk Optics. We appreciate Cameron, and even though we don't hunt the same, man, he's got a lot of good ideas for me that I need to be open-minded of to outfit my gear. He's a much bigger gear tech than I am. Let's shift gears just for a second and talk about permission properties. I know you were on a permission track earlier. I just got done pulling stands on about 6 permission tracks, and people don't understand how much we rely on permission tracks, honestly, even though you killed your buck on your farm. But we both spend a lot of time on permission tracks, and I think that people use how's the right way to say this? I'm going to say it wrong no matter how I say it, but people cop out a lot versus just putting effort in. And I think about Wes Delks, and he's just such an animal, especially with permission properties. Let's dive into this a little bit, because I think it's great timing to talk about it, because if people want to hunt out of state or they need new places to hunt, now's the time to get off your keister and go find them.
Yeah, and that's why we're talking about it this week. I mean, we're a long way from hunting season, but now's the time to prepare for next season, and this is a good time to start knocking on doors. The thing that in Wes's seminar that he gave at both Shipshewana and our dealer event, he mentioned a very interesting and very impressive stat. And that was the fact that he drove out of state to another state. He doesn't even live, it's not even his neighborhood. I mean, he's clear in another state. And he knocked on 120 doors in that state. And of those 120, he gained permission to hunt on 10 and ended up killing a nice buck there last year. I won't mention the state, or some people won't be happy about that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I posted that I've got permission on 26 properties. Now, some of those properties don't have much cover. I may have 5 acres of cover on the property, but it's still, I got permission. I've got cameras there. And, I got a little bit of criticism for having permission on 26 properties. Well, the only reason I have permission on 26 properties is I haven't found number 26. I'm always looking, and anybody can do it. You're going to get turned down way more than you hear yes. But now's the time to get out there. In the summertime, farmers, landowners, whoever, they start seeing hunters showing up all the time, knocking on their door for permission. Now's a chance to get your jump on the competition. Get out there, offer that landowner something in exchange for the hunting rights. Who knows? He might have hay to bale this summer or whatever. Leave him your phone number, and hopefully he will call you and get your foot in the door. But now is the time to secure those new properties.
I remember being on a consultant project last year, and there was this ag field to the north. And I said, you guys really need, it would make this property so much different if you could just walk across that open ag field. You wouldn't hurt a crop, you wouldn't do anything, but it was probably a 250-yard walk, but it would get to the backside of their sanctuary. So then inside of that, woods, we could create a hard edge tree stand right on the edge, almost like the west side of your sanctuary. We could build something like that. And I was like, it'd be phenomenal. You got to figure out who this guy is. And sure enough, the guys who owned the property a couple weeks later figured out who it was, and they were going to go knock on his door and ask permission to walk across the ag field. Well, on the way there was this farmer out that had cattle gotten out from the fence. So they literally just stopped and were helping the farmer get his cows back in, just to be nice people, not knowing that was the farmer that owned that field. So they started talking and realized who it was, and that guy not only gave them permission to walk across the field, he gave them permission to hunt another track, which just was completely game-changing. So, you're going to get turned down. If you don't like rejection, you don't need to be in sales or ask for permission properties, because you're going to get told no a whole lot. But man, you can find good properties. I mean, I only pay for one property in Illinois, and I haven't even hunted it in several years. Everything else I have up there is permission properties. So we've been very blessed to both of us have connections and people that let us hunt, but we take care of them too. It's become relationship building, which I think that's where people don't want to make the investment.
Well, and I think people think that it's easy for me to get permission on a property because of my reputation and notoriety, I guess, a little bit. And actually, a lot of times it works just the opposite. Usually, if I get permission on a property, anybody else hunting on that property or in the neighborhood doesn't like me being there. They think I'm going to shoot all the big bucks, like I just stack them up. And it usually is a little bit harder for me than I think it is the average person.
Yep.
It may be hard for some people to believe, but that's, in many cases, that is the truth. So, the only person stopping you from getting permission on X number of properties is you.
Yeah.
If you've got the drive and desire, you can do it. It's just that most people talk a good game on social media, but when it comes right down to it, they're lazy. And you show me a guy that knocks on 120 doors, and I'll show you a guy that's going to be successful.
Yeah, he's going to find a way with that kind of drive. I don't know if I've never knocked on that many doors in my life, much less 1 year. But think about it. He's studying Onyx and top ahead of time. So he's not just going, he's doing it strategically, finding areas and finding properties, and gets the door slammed in his face more times than not. But it only takes that one yes to open the door for something else.
That's exactly right. And now's the time to get on it.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break and move to our Higgins hot seat question brought to us by the Blinds. And this is going to be an interesting one. And I'm being a little selfish for this one, Don, because I've had to answer this question a countless amount of times since being seen in public the last couple weeks. And that is the diet that both of us are on. And we get that question a lot. Can you just take this opportunity to talk a little bit about your health and what you've done different with your diet, why you feel so much better this year than last year? And then I'll kind of give a quick update about my diet and my situation.
Yeah, so I guess to tell the whole story, last winter I had I guess you'd call it an event that landed me in the hospital. I'd been having these, another way to describe them is weird headaches. They weren't a normal headache. They were just, I don't know how to describe, weird headaches. I would have blurry vision for like a few seconds, even would black out, or not black out, but I'd lose vision for a second or two. And I was on my way to do a consulting job. I was going 3 hours from home, and I'd been in a routine of waking up every morning and having a headache, and I would take a couple Tylenol, and an hour later, I'm good to go for the day. Well, that morning I got up, had my typical headache, popped a couple Tylenol, jumped in the truck, started driving to this consulting visit. Springfield, Illinois was about halfway to where I was going, and that it's about an hour and a half from my house. And I got to Springfield, and my headache had not subsided whatsoever. I pulled over to McDonald's, actually took about a 15-minute nap, and popped 2 more Tylenol. When I woke up from my nap, I still had that headache. Started driving to the consulting job, and I was about less than 15 minutes from the place, and driving down the highway, and all of a sudden I'd lose my vision for just like a couple seconds. And I decided, you know what? If I go to the woods, they're probably going to medevac me out or take me out in a body bag. I immediately turned around. I don't remember if I called or texted the client and told him what was going on. I was having a medical emergency. I was headed to the emergency room, and I turned around. I was going to stop at the emergency room in Springfield. Well, by the time I got to Springfield, my headache was gone. I was feeling a little bit better, but I knew there was something going on. I needed to be checked out. So I called my wife, and I said, when I get home, we're going to the emergency room. Told her what was going on, and so she's ready as soon as I pull up. And we go to the hospital, and I had to stay overnight and did a bunch of tests. I did CT scans, MRI, I wore a heart monitor for a month. They even tested my eyes, thinking that that might be causing the headaches and such. Everything they could think of, they couldn't find anything. Well, I mean, my blood pressure was sky high too, though. That's the only thing they could find, and they wanted me to take some blood pressure medicine, and I think I might have done it once or twice, and I don't remember what the side effects were, but I mean, it wasn't good. So I ended up going to a holistic doctor in Indiana, basically where my daughter works. My daughter's a nurse practitioner in that office, and I didn't see her, but I seen the doctor she works under. And the first thing they did was they drew about another coughing fit, folks. So they drew about 6 vials of blood, sent them off, and she told me, she said, "We're going to get to the bottom of it." Said, "I'm running every test that they can do." And so I had a follow-up appointment 2 weeks later, and I go back, and she says, she starts going through, they had a 13-page report from all those blood samples, and she went through them and said, "Oh, this is a little high, that's a little off, here and there." She gets done. She says, the biggest issue I see is that you have cardiac inflammation. She said, what happens is, most people, when they put on weight, they put on fat. The fat is on the outside of their body. You can see it. And she said, you're one of those rare people that you put fat on inside. Your fat is around your organs and such. And she says, you've got that's far worse than the exterior fat. And she said that I can tell you without a doubt, you are absolutely going to either have a heart attack or a stroke. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's just a matter of when's it going to happen. And she says, I can give you some supplements that'll help maybe a little bit, but there's nothing that will help you more than changing your diet. And she said, you need to do away with carbs. You need to quit eating any breads, pastas, mashed potatoes, any carbs. You need to stop eating carbs, and sugars. You need to stop eating sweets. And well, I'd already given up soda pop, but I was still eating cherry pies pretty regular. Anyway, I knew that she was right because stroke runs in my family. Both my grandparents had strokes. My aunt died from a stroke a few years ago. And those weird headaches, I knew it was a stroke coming on that I was having. So it scared me enough to change my diet. And so I just started eating meats and fruits and vegetables and lots of salads with no dressing. And in about 60 days, I felt a lot better. And within, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, it was like I was 10 years younger. I mean, before I got on that diet, if I would walk 100 yards on flat ground, I'd be huffing and puffing almost out of breath. And today, I mean, on Sunday after church, Andrea and Corey and Walker and I went on a shed antler hunt here in the sanctuary. I walked all over that sanctuary, never got out of breath whatsoever. A year ago, it would have been a totally different story. So, I'd lost about 25 pounds without even trying, just by changing the diet, and that was it. I wasn't trying to lose weight because I've never been, I didn't think overweight, but I lost 25 pounds, so maybe I was 25 pounds overweight. But the difference in how I feel is just, you almost have to experience it. And no drugs whatsoever. I'm not taking any drugs. I refuse to take drugs because I think the side effects a lot of times are worse than what it's trying to cure. But your diet is so crucial to your health that, I mean, it's just amazing how much better I feel. And all I did was change what I eat.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take a lot of time up. We want to answer questions, but if you haven't heard, I got diagnosed with a severe case of rheumatoid arthritis earlier last year and put it off because I didn't want to deal with it through hunting season. And by the end of December, I was unable to even get myself dressed in the morning. I didn't realize how much pain I was in until it was gone. So a lot of the problems I was having with lack of sleep was a result of me hurting in the middle of the night. So obviously that makes me even more grumpy, more irritable, more tired. And so the day after Christmas, under the supervision of a doctor with blood work, I went on an extreme carnivore diet that gets all the inflammation out of your bloodstream. And within 10 days, I mean, it's like clockwork, 10 days. The first 10 days were hard because you get sugar cravings and all of the habits are hard to break, but in 10 days, the pain was gone. In about 2.5 weeks, the mobility started coming back. And I've lost 40 pounds since the day after Christmas, so just not quite a little over 2 months. So what'll happen is after this detox diet of about 90 days, they'll do blood work and start reintroducing foods and look for the triggers for inflammation based on what the food is doing. Everybody's a little bit different when it comes to that. So just like you can't eat certain things because of what it spikes in your blood work, it'll be the same way for me. So I've never really been on even a diet before. I just ate what I wanted. But I'm like you, I feel I'm sleeping every night and sleeping hard, and the pain's gone. So I don't know that it's going to fix it forever, but I'm only 49 years old. I don't want to be on meds for inflammation, arthritis, or pain at this point in my life. So we've both been asked this question a lot because I showed up to Shipshewana 35, 40 pounds lighter, and everybody wanted to know if I was sick. So we just take this opportunity to do a non-deer hunting question for this. Anything else before we answer some questions?
No, I just hope that our stories relate to someone out there, and that they change their diet, because I'm telling you, if you're having health issues, I would start with your diet.
Yeah.
Depending on what the issue is, but man, I'll tell you what, the difference in how I feel, it's like 10 years younger.
I'm so thankful that there are still doctors out there that want to look at those ways to fix things versus just pop pills from big pharma. And we could get on a political rant real easy with that. But yeah, go to your doctor and demand that we try to figure stuff out with diet first. It's not easy. I mean, I crave food like anybody else, and hopefully it'll get to the point I can have a cheat day or something, but if I got to choose between going back to the amount of pain that I was in versus the way I feel right now, I'll eat beef and pork and eggs the rest of my life. I don't need anything else. So, all right, let's take a break for Midwest Land Group. We'll be back with some listener submitted questions.
Ever had a terrible real estate experience? Average realtors usually spend more time selling themselves than on selling your land. They'll tell you anything to get the listing. They know that if they get the listing, you're stuck with them. Not here. Midwest Land Group has changed the way land is sold and is the only brokerage to offer a 100% satisfaction guarantee. That means if we don't meet your expectations, you can fire us. That puts all the pressure on us to perform. We don't just list land, we sell it. If you're looking to buy or sell property, don't before you talk to us. Visit us at MidwestLandGroup.com.
All right, this one comes from my buddy, Jordan Brandenburg from Sullivan, Illinois. I see him every Sunday at church. Jordan says, Don, you have stated in the past how your farm used to have a 150 every few years, and that turned into 150s every year with a 170s every few years. We are starting to now see your farm producing a 200 every few years. Will your farm ever get to the point of producing 190s plus every year with a 220 every few years? Every farm has a ceiling. What is the ceiling for yours and Terry's farm? Thanks for everything you guys do for the hunting community and bring God to the forefront of it all. Jordan, I don't think it'll ever get to that point. I think I'm probably close to the ceiling. It gets a little bit better each year, but it seems to have plateaued here since about 2020. That would have been the year that I shot Mel. And then, I've got multiple 170s every year. And most years there'll be one a little bigger than that, maybe 180s, occasionally a 200. But I don't think that I think I'm about there. I think I'm about at the limit, as good as it's ever going to be, which is fine. It is what it is. If you shoot 200s every year, it's going to get old. I don't expect it to ever get to that point, but I'm very grateful for the point that I've got it to, because where it's at now is beyond what I used to dream. I never thought I'd shoot a single 200-inch buck on this farm, let alone 3 of them. And to have 170s, multiple 170s every year, I think that's pretty good for 100 acres of deer cover, but I think it's about the limit.
My farm's so much different. For those who were at the FAE presentation in Shipshewana, you saw that my farm is not isolated. Access is limited. I got neighbors that hunt. I got out-of-state leases that are right up against me that shoot a lot of immature deer. So I think if I could keep the deer alive, my cap would be maybe every once in a while have a 150 inch, maybe 160. I think the biggest deer I've ever seen there is maybe in the 60s. That's why I hunt out of state and I'm constantly looking for other properties. But my wife is the fifth generation on this farm. It's going to stay in a trust and stay in the family and never be developed. So I'm going to make the best of it and make it a fantastic property. But it's not going to ever have the holding capacity nor the potential of that glass ceiling like what you got based on where it's at, number one, but access, human pressure on the perimeter, and it's just not isolated like yours.
Isolation's a key factor, and I didn't realize it when I started. I didn't realize what a diamond in the rough I had, but I've sure learned a lot in the last 30 years working on this place.
All right. Here's the next one.
This one comes from Mike Soyster from Roaring Spring, Pennsylvania. It says, Don and Terry, thank you for all you do, sharing your knowledge of deer hunting, and more importantly, your faith in our God. I have two questions. How much time do you both spend shooting your bow, both off-season and in-season? And number two, typical or non-typical? Which type of rack do you guys prefer? Thanks again for what you do. God bless. Mike, typical or non-typical? Well, I like character, so I like the non-typicals, but I also like giant typicals. I'm not talking even 170 inch. I mean, when you start getting 190 inch plus clean typicals without a sticker or anything, I think that's a pretty impressive animal and more rare than a non-typical, to be honest. But I like those character deer, extras, split tines, drop tines, any of that and all of that. That trips my trigger. What was the first question? I totally forget.
How much do you shoot your bow?
How much do I shoot my bow? So, last summer I shot probably more than I have in many, many years, but I was trying to sharpen up my recurve shooting skills, and I was shooting that probably 5 days a week. Typically, it's not that much. If I'm shooting my compound, I'll probably start shooting about a month before season. Not a lot, a couple times a week. But, I can pick up my compound, and after not touching it for 9 months or whatever, and I can put that first arrow right in the bullseye every single time. It's totally different. I don't think you need to practice like we did back in the 1980s. I kept my sight from the 1980s, but I got a much better bow that it's attached to. And these bows are just, so forgiving for poor form or whatever that you don't have to practice as much as you did back in the day. During season, I'd say, well, a lot of times I'll just shoot arrows out of my stand, especially on morning hunts where I'm not going to have to be down there in the dark looking for them. I'll shoot an arrow out of my stand just about every morning hunt right before I get ready to get down, just to make sure, I'm still on and everything, but not near as much as I did back in the day.
You're also not shooting long range either, and I think that's a big differentiation when people are shooting a lot, whether they're for 3D or whatever. But I don't think people understand how busy we are too. So, I think we both have to be respectful to the animal to be confident in the equipment. So when Matthew sends us a new bow every year, it's dialed in. So we don't have a lot of tweaking that we have to do to our bows. And then it's just a matter of sighting in. So we have to shoot to be respectful of that animal, but we also don't need to really practice past 25 yards either. So I think that's a big part of what we do a little bit different.
That's a great point. When you're not shooting 50 yards, if you're like, I'd never shoot over 30, and rarely do I shoot over 20 at an animal. So when you're making 20 and 25 yard shots, it's a lot different than 40, 50, 60 yards.
Absolutely. Okay.
This one comes from Tyler Swearingen from Alton, Illinois. It says, what reasons make you decide to either girdle or clear cut trees for deer bedding areas? What are the benefits of girdling compared to clear cut and clear cutting to girdling? Well, it's all based on the amount of material you have on the ground. Bigger trees, a lot of times you drop one of them and, you put a lot of wood on the ground and brush. And typically I'm cutting the smaller stuff and girdling the bigger stuff and just allowing that tree to die standing up. It still will let the sunlight in. whether it's standing or laying on the ground. But it's all about how much you've already got on the ground, how much debris is already on the ground. And if it's a really thin timber, you can obviously drop a whole lot more than if it's thick. So, I mean, that's the only determining factor for me, is how much debris is on the ground.
If you're not good with a chainsaw, I can see where there's some trees that are safer just a girdle versus drop. You know, you get into humongous beech trees on hill country that you see, you don't know where that thing's going above you. So I would also encourage you to do what's the safest. But man, sometimes you don't have the equipment to get stuff out of there and you want to open that canopy. Girdling can be just a fantastic an option for you, but then it just creates a bunch of widow makers up there. So be careful what you're doing in the woods in years after it.
Yep. All right. Next one comes from Houston Gregory from Altamont, Illinois. It says, "Hey, Don and Terry, I was wondering when is a good time to start spraying my fruit trees with Mike's Mighty Micros, or do you spray year round? Also, how did you like the State of the Union address? I think Trump did a fantastic job. Thanks for all you guys do. I'm soaking it all in and slowly turning my property into a place my kids can enjoy and hopefully harvest nice deer for years to come." Well, on the fruit trees, I don't want to spray mics on them until after the buds have been set. The blooms have set. You're starting to get little apples. The reason for that is during the bloom stage is when the tree is most susceptible to blight. And I forget the formula, but one of my consulting clients owns a big orchard out on the East Coast, actually supplies produce to the White House. And he gave me, man, be glad this cough is gone, but he gave me the formula for blight. And blight happens when the trees are in bloom, there is a rain or moisture event, and the daytime high and the nighttime low temperature totals, I think it's 112 degrees. Like if you've got, let's say it's 70 during the day and 45 is the low at night, you add them two together, you come up with 115. That's more than 100, I think it's 12. And when those conditions happen, blight is going to happen. Well, when you spray that Mike's Mighty Micros on your tree, you're introducing moisture to that tree and making it susceptible. Mike might disagree with me, and if he does, he can comment on here. But I'm not going to spray my trees until after the blooms are gone and that apple has set. And from that point on, spray them once a week all summer long, and you won't have a problem. But that's when I do it. As far as Trump's State of the Union, I didn't get a chance to watch it. I've just been too busy that I ain't had a chance to watch any TV. From what I've gathered, he did a fantastic job, and I guess the Democrats wouldn't even stand to support the American people. He's brilliant in that way that he can turn the tables pretty quick, and he just flat out asked, the way I understand it, if you support protecting Americans and America first, stand, and the Democrats remain sitting. So, I don't know. I'm going to avoid the political rant because I could go down a rabbit hole pretty easy right now. Next one comes from Jay Thielen from Westphalia, Michigan. It says, "Hi, Don and Terry. There's a possibility that the state of Michigan moves to a $1 tag. Some hunters seem to want it, others do not. With your knowledge of how deer are hunted and managed in Michigan, do you think this will help the age structure?" Well, Jay, it has to. I mean, it can't hurt it. You got a $2 limit now. Now, the $1 limit's a great thing. I think in some situations where larger landowners are trying to manage their deer herd, extra buck tags are definitely something to be utilized. But when you're talking on a statewide level, the $1 limit is absolutely a big positive for the quality of the deer herd, and it's definitely a good thing. It'll be interesting to see what happens if Michigan passes that. Next one comes from Matthew Montag from Liberty Township, Ohio. It says, "Hey, Don and Terry, my question is about the timing of planting soybeans for a spring plot. I've heard from multiple sources that planting soybeans later in the growth season is a good tactic, as this makes it so green leaves are available later in the summer, which would theoretically hold deer closer by later in the summer, early fall. The only thing is, I don't recall you two ever recommending this practice. Could you comment on this? Do you recommend later soybean plantings to provide greener leaves to the deer later in the summer, or would you recommend planting at the normal time as the surrounding farmers? If so, could you explain? Thanks for all you do, helping all of us become better deer hunters and hopefully end up in heaven in the process. Well, Matthew, I suggest you just plant them when the farmers do. Soybeans mature based on daylight hours largely. Yeah, there's different maturity rates of soybeans. So if you want green beans, green leaves on your soybeans later into the early fall, the opening days of archery season, for example, you should not plant them later, but you should plant a different maturity number. And the bigger the number, the later or the longer the growing season, the later they will mature. So, for example, a group 4 bean is going to stay green longer than a group 3 bean. And, they go, I don't even know how far they go, but up into the 7s and 8s, I know that for sure. That's going to just determine how many daylight hours it takes for that bean to mature. Another good way to have beans late or green soybean leaves into the early season is plant some soybeans with your fall blends. So if you're planting harvest salad, deadly dozen, or whatever, and you got some soybeans left over from spring planting, mix them in with the fall blend and plant it all at once. And when those little beans come up and they're in the 2-leaf stage, the deer absolutely love them and will just hammer them. So that's a good way to use soybeans for an early season, fall plot. But soybean maturity is based on daylight hours. If you ever see a soybean field that's growing where there's security lights, pole lights, typically the soybeans under that pole light will still be green while the rest of the field has already matured and lost all its leaves. And that's because of the light that's hitting those beans under that light keeps them green. It keeps them from maturing. So it's based on daylight hours, not planting date.
I think we have said in the past that if you don't have a very big plot and you're worried about browse and you got other ag in the area, to wait a little bit after those so the deer disperse, so you don't want your plot to be the first one to sprout, because then it's just a magnet. So I think that this listener probably is referencing when we were talking about it for a browse pressure issue, but not a green leaf issue at the end of the year. So I hope that clarification makes sense. But my philosophy on this has changed a lot over the years, and now that we have experimented with the hairy vetch, with double cropping, I could care less, because I'm going to have green coming right back up underneath those beans every single year. Whether the beans are green, I'm going to have something in there. If my beans dry off in August, I'm still going to be set with an overseed application of something to still give that. So I'm not as concerned about it as I used to be. I used to get really paranoid about it. Now that I understand the benefits of overseeding and seen the results, I don't worry about it at all. All right, last question. Let's get one more done.
All right, this one comes from Ed Solomon from Hastings, Michigan. It says, good morning, Don and Terry. I'll be planting NutriCrave corn for the first time this year with a no-till drill. I was wondering what I should do pre and post planting. Currently I have clover in that section of field. What steps and what herbicide will I need? Wes is an amazing consultant and has laid out the perfect plan. I want to do him justice with my plots. God bless for everything you do. Well, Ed, you're going to have to kill that clover. You got clover there right now. You want to grow corn. You need to spray that clover and kill it. And then right before planting your corn, I like to work the ground. The only time I work ground is when I'm planting corn. Everything else is no-till. So I would work the ground, get that corn seed off to a good start. As soon as you plant it, I would come in and I would spray Resicor right over the top of that bare dirt. Resicor is a pre-emergent herbicide that prevents weeds. I think food plotters need to understand different herbicides, and they've got the idea that you just find the right herbicide and you spray it over the top of it, whatever you're growing, and that is not the case. You can prevent a lot of those weeds from ever coming up with good pre-emergent herbicides, and especially when we're talking about corn and soybeans, there's just a long list of options that are available. The one I like from my NutriCrave corn is called Resicore. And I'll tell you, I've been doing this for several years now. I plant my corn. As soon as I'm done, I take the corn planter to the shed, unhook it, hook onto my sprayer, and, fill it up with the water and Resicore herbicide, and I come right back and on that bare dirt where I just planted, and I put that Resicore down. And it prevents weeds so well, I never touch that corn plot again after the day I plant and spray. That's it for the entire year. And late summer, you may start getting a little bit of foxtail or something within that corn, but very, very little. And what I like about the Resicore is it doesn't seem to affect some of the overseeding that I do in the fall with a drone. So rye, for example, I can come into that corn plot in the fall and overseed with a drone, plant rye in there, and I get a fantastic stand. I think the Resicore does a great job on broadleaf weeds like water hemp, mare's tail, those kinds of things. It does good, but not fantastic on grasses. So, the rye is basically a grass. So you come back in the fall and it establishes real easy. So that's how you want to go about it. The other thing with corn, you need to remember is corn utilizes or needs a lot of nitrogen. So there's various ways to apply nitrogen. There's liquid nitrogen. There's anhydrous ammonia that can be knifed into the soil. Probably the best way for a food plotter is urea. Urea is a granular herbicide, 4600, but those granules can basically dissolve in the air. So you need to work them into the soil. So what I do is I spray my corn plot. And then the day I'm going to plant, I come in and first thing I do is I broadcast that urea on the ground. And then I immediately disc it in and prepare the seed bed that way. And then I hook onto the planter and I plant my corn and I spray it. But get that granular urea, get it worked into the ground where it can do some good. You do that and you should have a good plot. I would strongly suggest, though, that you do a soil sample before you ever start. You can do that soil sample right now, have the results back in a week or so. And then when it comes time to plant that corn, you go to your local fertilizer dealer and you show them your soil sample and you tell them you're planting corn. Have them give you a fertilizer buggy loaded with whatever it is you need, including your urea, which can be mixed in there too. You broadcast it, work it into the soil, plant, and away you go.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, as we close out, one more announcement. We did just get a shipment of our land management handbooks. So we've shown this book. By the time this episode airs, we will have these available. We're going to try to at least just sell them for what it costs for us to put it together. It's not going to be much money. Shipping is free, but we'll sell these books. It is a unbelievable resource of everything you need to know, from herbicides to planting depths to, you covered everything you could ever think of in this book. So all of you guys who weren't able to get one through a dealer event, the dealer event we had, will be able to get one very soon. So we have a shipment there. They'll be available on the Real World website. 91 pages, I think.
Just grabbed one here behind me, Terry, and I want to point out something. So this page here is for the NutriCrave corn, but you got all your NPK and your pH, your soil pH listed. You got your settings for your Genesis or G series drill. You got seed depth, the seeding rate, how much seed per acre, optimal planting time. On the facing page, you got your tips for success. We do that with every product. So, just to help you be more successful. And we didn't just cover real world products in this. We covered a lot of topics that we don't sell products for or anything, but it'll definitely answer a lot of questions. It's a heavy paper, spiral bound notebook that it's just a handbook you can keep. You can keep it in your tractor or wherever, your truck.
We're definitely not trying to make money on this thing. We're just trying to get you guys resources to use, keeping your truck, keeping your tractor, have all those settings and information there. And hopefully it allows people to be more successful. So before we close out, check out Dad's podcast, Chasing Assurance. He's going through his series on the Apostle. Hope you're enjoying that. And Dan Pfeiffer has Sunday Night Prayer Time this week. We had a technical difficulty last week and wasn't able to air it, so we apologize about that. But we got through 7 questions. We both got some busy weeks ahead of us, but I'm glad that the trade show circuit's over.
Yep, I got one more event. Well, actually 2. So March 19th, I'm going to be speaking at Shelbina, Missouri at the Christian church there. That's the home church of Dr. Aaron Gaines. We're going to have a feed that night. I don't know if it's a wild game feed or what it is, but I hope to see a lot of people there. And then I'm going to be at the end of March is the Wisconsin Deer and Turkey Expo, I think it's called. I'm going to be there in the Extreme Custom Food Plots booth on Saturday only. I'm only going to be at that show one day. It's going to be on Saturday. And if you're going to be at that show, I think it's at Wisconsin Dells is where it's held. Look forward to seeing you there. Be sure and stop by Extreme Custom Food Plots booth and be there to visit with you.
That's all I got, bud.
All right. God bless everyone. We'll see you back here next week.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.
Well, hey everyone, welcome back to another Chasing Giants Sunday Night Prayer Time, and honored and excited to be together today and jump into kind of where my mind's at and what I'm recognizing and where I feel the Lord is sharing today. And this time of year is interesting. There's a lot of noise out there, and right now is even more because there's a ton of people kind of thinking of where their treasures are, their money, et cetera, and doing a lot more than usual, right? We've got tax season, so paying unto Caesar what is Caesar's. We've got, looking at what came in, what went out. And if you're like me during this time and you hear you've got this going on, you've got other things, and if you're like me, there's a moment where you look at these numbers and things going on and you feel something. Maybe for you it's relief, maybe it's stress, maybe it's a little pride, maybe it's a little worry. But as I reflect on this, it revealed something of my heart I wouldn't say I was proud of, is if this is what's going on and this is how I'm feeling, where is my treasure? And even more so as I then, start looking and flipping through things like social media, maybe to distract myself from some of these things. But every once in a while, I'll open it and within 30 seconds, it happens so fast. Then I'll see myself going and seeing maybe someone doing something incredible. Maybe it's someone who they bought a bigger farm, or they bought a bigger, shot a bigger buck, and maybe their business is just taking off. Maybe someone's just on an amazing trip. And I sit back and I kind of see where I'm at and looking through things. Maybe I quickly, before I even realize it, I find something that's subtle and starts happening in my heart, and that's comparison. It's kind of strange because I know better, I know scripture, and I talk about stewardship and contentment all the time. And although this message, it sometimes could have some to money, right? And where this kind of journey started is a few months ago, I was listening to Devin Hurley's devotional on Sunday Night Prayer Time. And I mean, it's been 4 or 5 months ago, but it stuck with me. And quickly you can look down this and you realize that your heart can start drifting long before your head notices. And so I do understand that some of where this came from at the beginning, you reference money because of the season. And, I want to commend Devin for his boldness to talk about money on his. It's a very taboo topic. But I think today and what God's placed on my heart is not just money, but maybe it's treasure or talents, gifts, And so Matthew 6:21, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so it's really caused me to look maybe a little bit harder in the mirror and ask a hard question. Where is my treasure at right now? Scripture reminds us that the real issue, it's not about money, it's the heart. And Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And we live in a world, social media being that first example, that constantly pulls at our hearts. We live in a world that comparison is easier than probably it's ever been in history. And James 3:16 warns us that where envy and selfish ambition exist, disorder follows. But I'd be remiss to not say that the tension is real, right? 1 Timothy 5:8 also talks about providing for your families and the responsibility and the intent there. But also we're reminded in Luke 12:48, to whom much is given, much will be required. And so work and provision aren't necessarily the problem. The real question is, where are we finding our peace? Is this something that we believe that we own? Or is it something that we're simply called to be a steward? Where is our treasure? And one of the things that I've really appreciated, and Don and Terry have talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, is how they mentioned that when they saw things change is when they truly said they opened their hands, right? They opened their hands and said, hey, we're turning this all to you, Jesus. That if we can use this platform to save one person, God, like this is what we want you to do with it. Just saying, Lord, it's all yours. God's really called and designed us to live in contentment, and yet the world has us in comparison. Is our treasure in what the world says, or eternity where God's designed us? Philippians 4:11 says, I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. And 1 Timothy 6:6 reminds us that godliness with contentment is great gain. And so I don't know if this is as gut check of a question as it is for you, but is my heart drifting towards outcomes? Or is it resting in obedience? Is my heart drifting towards outcomes, or is it resting in obedience? And so God has not called us to control the outcomes. He's asked us to serve faithfully, to serve our families, to serve our teams, to serve our businesses, to support people around us, and to serve the clients and relationships that He's placed in front of us. To open our hands and trust Him with the rest, understanding that our treasure is not here in this world, but in eternity. So the question maybe tonight for all of us is, where is our treasure right now? Because we need to guard our heart, because wherever our treasure goes, our heart will follow. And God's invitation is simply this: put your treasure in the things that last forever. Let's close out in prayer. Father God, thank you for this time to be together and another opportunity to serve you. Thank you for your grace that none of us deserve. God, help us to guard our heart in a world that is full of noise and comparison, to recognize you designed us for contentment, generosity, and service. Remind us where our treasure is, and remind us to just be good stewards of what you've blessed us with in our time, in our gifts, in our money, to recognize, God, you've got it, and our treasure is in you. Father, give us the margin to see through in our days the people that you've entrusted us with. Give us the heart to be generous, to recognize we are investing in eternity and kingdom impact. Lord, please use us as a reflection of you and help us to walk each and every day trying to grow closer to you so that we can save the lost. Through you, we can change lives by bringing people to you, by the reflection and your grace. Use your Holy Spirit to help us each and every day live as a light to the world. Thank you that your word speaks clearly and cuts deeply through the noise of this world, and help us to shine that light. Help us all to have a great week. In Jesus' name we love you. Amen. Thanks, y'all. Have a great week.